Hello, strangelings. Welcome back to the parlor. So today I have a kind of probably going to end up being a little strange and rambly, but hopefully you guys understand what I conclude in the end. So this first part, it's personal stuff. You see, my family had a lot of woes. My grandmother, my father's mother, chose to abuse my entire family. Worst part is this kind of started before my mother and father even found each other. More of she decided to abuse her entire family. She got to a point where she was prostituting her daughters and brainwashed her husband to believe just because she said the boys did bad that they need a whooping. And after all, that poor man was working his entire life away after retiring from 20 years in the army just to keep a roof over their heads, not knowing where half the money was going. So, of course, when my grandmother had convinced my father to become an alcoholic and then had convinced him to start abusing his family physically, my grandfather took a lot of exception to it. He felt so very bad, especially since how this was now his ex-wife, because he had finally realized what was happening, dissected it, and moved forward to heal and to help his children heal. So, of course, when this happened, I'm sure you all can imagine, he had that first visceral reaction of, what did I do wrong to keep my family from being protected, even though I wanted to make sure that they were protected after all of this time? You see, he didn't hate his daughter-in-law. He thought she was great, amiable, intelligent, capable, a little too loving to someone who keeps hurting her. Once he realized how deep it went, the fact that my mother didn't leave because she was threatened with having the boys taken away from her, he did everything he could to keep at least as much health and sanity in the situation. It's a weird way to put it. I don't know how else to put it. He did as much as he could to help to push against what was happening in the household. I guess that's the best way I can put it. And I remember even before we moved into the house that would be the house I feel I grew up in, I remember him coming over and trying to do things here and there. Not as much as Eunice came over and exerted her influence, but nonetheless. And when my mother finally actually got the help that she kept asking for to leave the house, and did so, my grandfather was around, at least while he was in the same town as us, a lot to help, especially, but just in general. And I never really quite understood why. I always owed it to his guilt in not already foreseeing what was happening or what was going to happen. Because my grandfather was that type. I could see him feeling guilty for it. But as an adult, in reality, I realized more and more that it was about this thing he sat down and said to me one time. My grandfather was sitting there talking to me about our family, and I had said it was really lucky that Mom could have a father-in-law like Grandpa. And this is after my grandfather and my mother had sat down and talked about her family history and things like that too. And here my grandfather said, "You remember, I told you we adopted a Cherokee boy." And then he told me the actual full story as to why. And then he had told me about the Egyptian slave that escaped from the South and ended up in my family. And then he told me that he knew that meeting my mother wasn't an accident, and it wasn't because his son just happened to meet her and decided he liked her at all. Because after hearing about my mother's grandmother, my grandfather had decided that if his family had been at whatever harbor she ended up at and had known who she was, there was a guarantee that there would have been safety for her. Because just like with that Cherokee boy who they had found out was in the line of medicine men, family-wise, they would have wanted to save her culture because the Bohemians had been disbanded. How was she going to be able to make sure her culture stayed alive? Of course, she did so by teaching her granddaughter, who then taught her great-granddaughter as much as possible. But my grandfather looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "Even if your father hadn't met your mother, if my family would have known about your great-grandmother, you would have been family anyway." And at the time, it seemed like such a silly, it was kind of a what if that would never, be testable. How in the world can you ever test whether or not, somebody would have been family several generations before if those generations are now all dead, But recently I've been thinking about it. And not even because this is, winter and Thanksgiving and Christmas and let's remember everything that happened and blah, blah, blah. No. There's this thought that keeps kicking around my head. It seems to me that this is a great example of how not only do we then turn people that we feel need us or are like us into family, but even in searching for real family, for searching for a partner, searching for someone you can introduce to your sister or whatever, we still gravitate towards those who are first, who are like those who we are used to. Second, we then start gravitating towards people who we feel are aligned with who we want to be around. But then, when full maturity tends to hit, we gravitate towards people who are like the people, or have a trait at least of the people who are those we want to be more like, the people we want to be. A trait here and there is fine, but we tend to, in maturity, emotional maturity, not age, but emotional maturity. We get more and more towards people we feel are the kind of people we would want to be. We would want to be around, and we would want our children or grandchildren or whoever to be. We realize more of our connections, and we realize more of how those connections affect us. So, this weird long rambling about things in my family, it's really just to say there are so many of us who have people in our lives who hurt us regular or act in a way we feel is morally or societarily or for any other reason wrong, or that don't fit into the life we are trying to get to. Now, of course, good people, maybe we can still hang on to them. We don't have to be just like everyone in our life. But it is a good note that we can actually take a moment to step back and to say, well, this person has a tendency to behave in ways that we never approved of. And this is the impact they have on my life. And adjust it. And if you feel that you have a tendency to attract people who don't align with who you want to be, it's time to not only take that cup of Auld Lang Syne and say, okay, but these are great memories. However, I don't want to live in that world anymore. To say, I can visit you once a month or so, but we can't hang out regularly because I'm going here and you want to stay here, or you're going this way. And if we seem to be attracting what we feel is the wrong type, perhaps it's time to look inward to see what is that's attracting that type. I hope this made sense for you guys. I tried not to make it too confusing. It probably is, though. It's fine. Hey, and if nothing else, you guys learned a little bit about my personal history. Alright, guys. I'm gonna get out of here. I hope that that is actually good advice, that you understand what I'm trying to say. I hope that you take it to heart. And I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here, get some stuff done. But before I go, guys, there is something I do need you to remember. As always, it doesn't matter who you are. Take care. I love you. Doesn't matter who you are, I love you. I'm saying it all in the wrong order. Take care of each other. And I'll see you guys in the next video.